any advice you have for someone just getting started as an entrepreneur?
Well, you got to have the stomach for it. That's for sure. And just to be brave.
Hey, John, look forward to hearing your story on the FITTEAM show this morning. How you doing?
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, if you would, just tell us where you grew up, where you're from, a little background about yourself.
I actually grew up in Massachusetts. My dad was a minister, so I'm a preacher's kid, and we moved around a little bit, but all within Massachusetts, and grew up obviously a huge Red Sox and Patriots fan and all that. Sports has been a big part of my life the whole time.
So obviously the Red Sox and Patriots has been good as of lately.
Lately, when I was growing up, they stunk, but I stayed with them even after I moved away, and I basically been living elsewhere my entire adult life, but always have been a diehard fan, and it's been a good 15 or 20 years the last few, and of course my two sons are. They don't know what it's like to lose, as a Boston fan. So they're happy every year, it seems.
What kind of hobbies and what was your background growing up? What did you like to do?
Again, it's really all sports. Basketball. Even when I was a little kid, golf. I got into golf when I was about 5 years old. My dad was a scratch handicap, so that was kind of a natural for me. And I'd go out and caddy for him, and then picked up the game myself. And but yeah, pretty much basketball and golf and baseball growing up.
What was your favorite?
At the time it was probably basketball, but at 6 feet tall, I knew, I played in high school, but I knew after high school that was pretty much going to be it, being vertically challenged. So, I was a good enough shooting guard, but that was probably going to be where it ended.
So after high school, what was next for you?
Well, I did play out in Ohio for 2 years, soccer and golf, and then, but then I transferred to Johns Hopkins after my sophomore year in Baltimore, and, it was a little bit more of a financial hit, so I started working in a restaurant and in the area, and to kind of pay my way through Johns Hopkins, and so sports kind of had to take a back seat for a few years for me, and that was really the end of my quote-unquote sports career. Mm-hmm. Until I got into it from a business standpoint.
Right. So what came next for you?
Really, I was working in the restaurant business, mm-hmm. and I also had a job on Capitol Hill, believe it or not, and I was a poli-sci major at Hopkins, so that was kind of the path. But ironically, as we sit here now with everything that's going on in Washington, probably a good move that I didn't continue with that path. But it just wasn't, I just kind of, after doing, and that's really the point of internships, I think, is mm-hmm. to kind of, see what you like, see what's a good fit, and so I just didn't feel it, and I was making very good money as a bartender and paying my way through school, and ironically, I kept doing it after I graduated, and had a couple short gigs with ad agencies in town. I was doing a lot of advertising studies in college as well, and I kind of liked that. And believe it or not, one of my customers in the bar worked for the Washington Bullets in the old Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland, and she knew that there was a spot with a brand new fledgling indoor lacrosse league, and I didn't play at Hopkins, but I knew about the sport, so I got the job, and that kind of away we went. And so 35 years later, here I am. Still
so you never played lacrosse, but you knew the sport well. And
yeah. I knew a lot of guys on the team, and mm-hmm. and I understood the sport, so it was kind of easier to sell it. We were just selling season tickets, myself and one other guy, Lee Corrigan, who ended up being my business partner years later. He now owns the Corrigan Sports in Baltimore, and he actually played lacrosse at Maryland, so we were kind of the two amigos selling this brand new team, and we got 10,000 fans at the first game, and I think we had, I don't know how many season ticket holders. But it was successful, so that kind of springboarded both of us into sports marketing careers after that.
So after that, what was the next step?
Well, I think we did that for that kind of morphed into both of us becoming group sales representatives. So we just sold. This was back before the internet. This is how old we are. We sold group tickets any way we could. We'd put flyers in restaurants. We'd put flyers in sports shops. You name it, as well as dealing with companies in the Washington area to come out to the events, and it was a wide range of events. It wasn't just it was actually the Capitals and then Bullets, now Wizards, but everything else that went on in the building. So it was ice capades and concerts and truck pulls, anything that came into the building we sold. So it was a really good experience because we got to deal with a wide variety of customers. So I probably did that for, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years, and then that morphed into a sponsorship opportunity within the same organization, and I became the director of event sponsorship. So anytime a tour or an event came through, or Georgetown basketball, or anything that we had in the building that needed sponsorship boost, that was kind of my bailiwick. So that's really how I got into sponsorships at that point.
So after the group sales, got into sponsorships.
Yeah, okay. and it was I had great mentors. My boss on the sponsorship side sold the naming rights to the building. It was then called the US Air Arena, if you remember that, and that was really one of the first building naming rights deals that was done for kind of a 7-figure, high-dollar deal. And now, of course, everything has naming rights on it, including the FITTEAM Marathon.
So, right. Yeah. So after the selling the sponsorships, what was next for you?
Well, I was probably in my early 30s at that point, and I left to we were working on some various things with the University of Maryland, and Lee was actually working over there running their radio network, and after a point in time we both said, hey, let's start our own company. So we started a company in the Baltimore area, and being from a golf background, my dream was always, back to when I was a little kid, I used to build putt-putt courses on the sandbar and the beach, and I was always into golf from a really young age, and including playing it, but really anything I could do in the business. And I literally just cold called the PGA Tour and said, hey, you don't have a senior tour event in the Mid-Atlantic. How come? And they told me, well, you need this, that you need a sponsor, you need a golf course, you need a charity, blah, blah, blah. So Lee and I went out and did it, and we got State Farm as our title sponsor. There's a whole lot of things that transpired in between then. We ran a kind of a off-tour 2-day event with Toyota, but then we started the State Farm Senior Classic on the senior tour, and did that for a number of years. Then I went to work for Peter Jacobson Productions, and I ran the CBS Charity Classic up in Rhode Island for 6 or 7 years, I guess. And that was a great experience, great to work with Peter and his group, and got into development more. I was the VP of development there, and working with CBS, Fortune 50 company, great golf tournament, still is a great event. And I met Ken Kennerly along the way, and now working with him on K2 Road Sports.
Awesome. So before K2, did you do some races before that? Or?
Yeah. So after I left Peter Jacobson, I started my own company in New England, and didn't really honestly did not intend to get into the racing business. I was not much of a runner. I could run, but I wasn't a distance runner for sure. And just kind of fell into it, but I had some sponsors that were interested in it. I sold and managed some triathlons along the way, but really it's kind of been mostly marathons and that business. And when the opportunity came up to get involved with the Palm Beach Marathon, I jumped at that.
So your whole life has basically been sports, and why did you choose sports? Is that just something because you grew up with it, or that's where your passion is? Or?
Yeah, my dad, he wasn't your typical minister. Maybe he was, he was a big golfer and a sports fan, and he actually grew up in Ohio, and my grandfather was an Ohio State alum. My grandmother was an Ohio State alum, and I just kind of grew up with that Buckeyes, big college sports fandom and mentality, and then obviously growing up in New England, I had the professional side of it too, and I just loved it, and I always. Just whenever I had free time when I wasn't working at school, it was always out in the driveway shooting hoops or, going to the golf course, playing baseball with my friends, whatever. It was always sports related for me.
So being an entrepreneur in sports or entrepreneur doing anything, it's obviously there's some challenges, some struggles you have to overcome. What's some of the toughest experiences that you'd want to share being an entrepreneur?
Well, the event business is difficult in that you have to be able to adapt, and you get things tossed at you that there's just no way to plan for them. Especially with outdoor events like golf or running, for that matter. Weather is always a factor. I could give you 10 stories about weather situations that you can have your rain plan or your whatever it is, but depending on a million factors, things can happen. We had a situation here a few years ago, the first year that we took over the marathon, with the king tides, and part of our race course was getting flooded every day, and so we had to come up with some alternatives. I think we ended up certifying about 5 different routes for all kinds of different scenarios, and it's just it's just a lot of that. When I was in the golf business, we got hit with some construction issues that messed with our TV compound, and we were scrambling at the last minute to overcome that. And when you're spending what you spend to produce a live broadcast on the Golf Channel, you can imagine it's pretty important to the customer. So it's just crazy stuff that happens, and so in the event business, the struggles are just that you've got to be prepared mentally to not only fix them but kind of keep everyone's panic level to a minimum.
Right. So 2 years ago, the FITTEAM Palm Beaches Marathon. For people that don't know what King Tide is and how the course was changed, talk a little bit more about that, because a lot of people experience that.
Yeah. So that year we were running over the bridge from West Palm Beach into the town of Palm Beach, and that whole stretch of the course, which is not long, but with a marathon, every mile matters. And it was just getting flooded every day. So we were out there analyzing it for weeks. Because you have not only have the king tides, but you have the full moon to consider, and you just have the normal tide chart. And so we were out there filming and timing and testing, and not to mention they were also putting in a new path that was part of the course. Construction was happening, so it was a little hair raising, but at the end of the day, we were pretty. We did end up adjusting the course a little and adjusting the time. We started the race a little bit earlier than what people had been planning on, but we wanted to get everybody through before the flooding started, and we made it through with probably a half an hour to spare. So in the end, it was the right move to make. But yeah, it was just a curveball that I think we started looking at it probably 45 days before the race, and it was definitely a concern right up until the day of.
So this year, December 8th, is obviously the marathon event this year.
Yep.
Anything you want to share about the course or some changes?
Yeah, well, it's we made the decision to, I'm oversimplifying it, but we made the decision to make the marathon kind of 2 loops of the half is probably the best way to describe it. And that really was to, we have... the marathon, believe it or not, is not the most attended, obviously, because not that many folks can run a full distance. So, with the stretched out course, it can get a little lonely out there. So we wanted to kind of condense the crowd enthusiasm and have more water stops. So like when you have that double loop, especially when it's as beautiful as the shoreline is in West Palm, there's no harm in running that area twice, and the reaction to the change has been phenomenal. Everybody's liked it. We're still making plans and seeing how everything will come out on race day, but we're really excited about the new course.
And then December 6th, the 5K and 10K.
Yeah, 5K, 10. We moved the 10K from Sunday morning to Friday night, and it's a glow run. It's the night after, I believe they light up the Sandy Tree, which is a kind of a local favorite thing here in West Palm. And the course is tree lined, and there's holiday lights up and down the course. It's really a beautiful run. And we gave the folks the opportunity to run a race Friday night and then again on Sunday morning. So we're seeing a lot of folks do the 5K or the 10K Friday night, and then most of them doing the half on Sunday, not too many doing the race on Friday and then doing the full. But it's a way to kind of spread out the weekend and really get the enthusiasm going throughout the weekend.
Who's some people throughout your life that have helped you get to where you're at today? Like some people that, maybe some mentors or coaches or some team?
Yeah, so, lots of my professors in high school and college, come to mind. Just, you learn a lot from various ones. And my dad, obviously my dad was a huge influence in how I got into sports. He coached me, was always really supportive of what I did, and couldn't have been more proud when I got into the golf business. When I grew up, I got to meet, in essence, all of my childhood idols in sports. I met John Havlicek, and then as I got into the business, I got to meet, they weren't necessarily my idols, but I've worked with Terry Bradshaw and Jim Palmer and Cal Ripken, and then in really more in the golf business, just getting to meet and work with Arnold Palmer a few times, and Jack Nicklaus. Of course, my dad being from Columbus, that was a huge thrill for him. Not that I got to meet him, so that's just been that was great, and mentors at the Capitol Center early on that really taught me how to sell. The training back then was so different. We didn't have the emails. It was still fax machines and everything on paper. So, you had to work the phones. You had to learn how to deal with all kinds of different folks. And I had some great teachers at center management, and as well as Peter Jacobson along the way. So,
What's any advice you have for someone just getting started as an entrepreneur?
Well, you got to have the stomach for it. That's for sure. Just to be brave and go out there. If you believe in your idea, that's number one. If you believe in it, then you can help, espouse that to other people. And, I mentioned my internships, but I think that leads to entrepreneurship too. But internships are critical as you're going through college or even after college. I advise recent graduates that just don't jump in just to make some money in a field that you don't want to be in. Make some money at a restaurant or doing some sort of job, because everybody has to have some money, but to do internships in your field of study or what you're interested in getting into, I think that's number one. And I think you really have to have a knowledge of the product or what you're, you can't be an entrepreneur and just kind of go in blind. You really got to know the deal and the product for sure.
Is there anything else you want to mention about the FITTEAM Palm Beaches Marathon Weekend, the 6th through the 8th of December?
Well,
just a couple of weeks away.
Yeah, I think every year we change it up a little bit to, whether it's to increase the excitement or the, things that maybe didn't work so well the years prior. And so, we've had the expo this year. It's in another new place. We've had it in a different place each year, and we're trying to get to perfection. You always are in the event business, and so we're excited about that. I think it's going to increase the energy of having everybody kind of in one location at the race finish, and as well, and have them be comfortable with that area, because they're going to go there for the expo on Friday and Saturday. It's all at the Meyer Amphitheater. And really, for the runners themselves, a lot of it's about the race course. So that change is huge. We do get a lot of runners that they're concerned about the medal and the T-shirt and those things too, and we're always trying to make those great. But it really is, when it boils down to it, it's about the course and the organization, and you're always trying to strive for perfection in that business for sure.
Any last words on something that you want to share that people maybe don't know about you, or?
Yeah, I guess just my longevity in the business says it all. I mean, if you love something, as I love sports, I've never gotten out of it. 35 years, here I am, and really without studying it, quote unquote. Back in my day, there really weren't sports marketing majors, if you will. There were a couple schools, I think Ohio University and a few other schools that had it, but it was really, and now it's, of course it's everywhere, but I guess my advice to all of those folks that are in that, just to do an internship and get into it, and be patient, be passionate, work hard. It took me, just like it takes a lot of people, it took me a number of years to really get my footing, but then once I had it, I've been able to grow 2 businesses now from, literally bootstrapping them, from zero, as well as work for other people. So it's a good combination for folks to have, and I don't think too many people work for one company for 35 years anymore. I've had 3 or 4 different kind of gigs, but that's it just shows if you do what you love, you're going to stay with it and be successful.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us this morning.
Sure, thank you.